Okay, so red zone defense. This is the area of the game that I think most players tend to neglect. And I think that red zone offense is another area that people tend to neglect, but we'll leave that for a different conversation on a different day. If you guys can get stops down in the red zone, holding players to 3 instead of 7, or making your opponent chase the touchdown and forego kicking the field goal altogether, you're going to win so many more games. And I think this tip alone, if you guys were to pair it with yesterday's video in which I showed you guys how to shade your hook zones correctly in this game, this is going to kind of make for the best lockdown defense you can run in the game. So let's go ahead and show you guys exactly what coverage we want to run for this and what abilities we're going to utilize. I don't really think it matters what formation you want to run this out of. If you guys feel really confident stopping the run out of dollar with those slot corners blitzing or whatever, feel free. This is totally fine. If you guys need a fourth defensive lineman, you could call something like big nickel over G, or maybe even the 4-3 even 6-1, because I think that gives you the best blend of just a fluky shed defense through the middle if you pinch and crash it down. But let's talk about, regardless of what formation you run, what our AP setup is going to be. So I think it's really important now with the AP in Madden, especially in Ultimate Team, that you guys are spending on safeties that have not only deep out KO for between the 20s, but also mid zone KO. And this is going to be really important when you guys enter the red zone, okay? Especially inside the 10, because the field is 20 yards long inside the 10. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a couple of players. I'm going to put Jair Brown, who on my team gets mid zone and deep zone for a total of 1. And then I'm going to put also Kevin Byard, who has a universal coverage, which for those that don't know is basically every knockout in the game. These players are going to play our safety positions. Now from there, what we are going to do is we are going to set our zone drops. Now you don't need your traditional 30-yard setting. That's a between the 20s deal where you're defending a long field. Once you get inside the red zone, let's say just for the sake of argument, the ball's on the 10. Okay. What we're going to do is we're going to play our flats super low. This is going to take away RPOs. This is going to take away the quick throws to the flat, whip routes, things like that underneath. You really can't afford to give walk-in touchdowns away in the red zone. So we're going to set it to 0. Now, based on how far or how long the field is, what we're going to do is we're going to set our flats to basically 5 yards less than how far the field is. So again, if we're on the 10, you've got 10 yards to the front of the goal line. The end zone is 10 yards longer. So that's 20. What we're going to do is we're going to set these to 15. And the reason you want to do that is you kind of want to bait your opponent into thinking they can throw the ball over the top of a 15-yard zone in the corner, but still be able to get back with a break on ball bonus. Okay. So that's the goal here. If we're on the 10. Now, if this were on the 5, obviously it's a 15-yard field. You would set it to 10 at that point. Basically subtract 5 from the length of the field. If they're on the 20, and they're just entering the red zone, that's a 30-yard field, I would probably go ahead at that point and maybe run these as like a 30 and a 5, which is more traditional, because I think you're more likely to see a traditional setup for the offense at that point. But again, once the field condenses down, follow what I just broke down. Let's go back to the 15 and the 0. And what we're going to do is we're going to choose basically a cover 4 defense. Okay. And the reason we want to do that is we are going to kind of show you guys the general rule of thumb is that you want to kind of bait throws, especially in the middle of the field. So we've already got our 0 set for our outside linebackers. We're going to go ahead base align and put our outside guys in blues. Okay. The reason you want them in the blues, again, you want to take away that sideline shot. You kind of want to bait them into throwing the ball over the top of their head. But then what we're going to do is we're going to put our safeties in hook curls, keeping in mind that with this particular play, our safeties have mid-zone knockout. If you guys are enjoying today's video, make sure you guys give it a like. Super important. It helps push this video out in the YouTube algorithm. I'm forever grateful. Hopefully this video can get over 200 likes. That really seems to be where we've been sitting lately. It takes absolutely no time. If you guys would just do me that solid, I'd really be grateful. Also, make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel and hit that notification bell as I upload 5 times a week here with content here on the channel. Okay, so when we have these KOs now, these mid-zone KOs, this makes it really tough to throw really anything. A drag, it makes it tough to throw a seam over their head because they've got a KO that they're sitting in, and it makes it tough to exploit the corner. So, as it pertains kind of this little like hitch post meta, a lot of people like this hitch post. Basically what ends up happening is you want to throw this, you can't really throw it in the dead middle of the field. Now all of a sudden you have to try to tuck it in over the top of that dropped cloud flat while the sheds are occurring. So again, we're kind of baiting this throw with this player. We're telling him, okay, right here, the field is basically only 20 yards long, but I want you to sit at 15. So he sits about halfway in the end zone, and he's going to bait this throw into this back corner, which is going to be pretty tough to do, given you really are going to have a hard time squeezing that in without a dice roll. But what's really, really good about this as well is if you were to kind of pair this up with yesterday's video, we kind of learned that if you guys shade your coverage outside, this is one of the bigger issues with the game, is that you kind of end up with, if you don't shade outside, you end up with those tight end wheels being so spicy. So you'll see a lot of players are just going to end up kind of throwing that ball into that area of the field where, you know, if I was actually usering, most players tend to hover in the middle of the field. But it's this little area right here where the tight end kind of turns right up. Again, kind of imagine that I were guarding this crosser in the middle of the field. If this red circle user wasn't there, you're going to have a walk-in or a fall-in touchdown here because this hook curl is literally too far inside. But that's where yesterday's tip, like I said, comes into play. So what we're going to do here is we're going to kind of, again, set our 0, 5, whatever for our purples, and then our length of the field -5 cloud flats. And then we're going to put our hooks on the field at, you know, regular depth, but we're going to shade outside. So I'm going to shade outside now, and what we know from this is that a shaded out hook curl is going to play the tight end wheel that everyone loves to throw. So if I go and I throw that, boom, this is intercepted, and now that safety is working back the other direction, potentially for a pick 6, depending on the type of animation you get. If you get an animation attacking the football as they're, you know, cutting up the seam, it's going to be really tough. You take a look here, look at how the right safety is kind of hanging out in the seam, jumps straight out to the tight end wheel. And then if you kind of take a look at the way this looks, I mean, you're not throwing the wheel there. You're not throwing the crosser. That's where the user is. You got this other hook if, you know, they want to throw something, you know, to the running back. If you were to run a Texas or something, it's going to be really, really tough to live on just a diet of high balls into the back corner of the end zone and praying that it goes your way. So again, if I were to kind of shade outside, again here, with this, what we're going to do is this time I'm going to run and I'm going to spy the pass rush so we don't get sacked right away. Obviously, we know 6-1 sheds like crazy. But if I'm trying to tuck this hitch post combo, which is so popular, look at how this throw, it's so tough. And you see that, like, that's not even a KO. And we're able to get an interception on this. So it's so difficult to handle this defense when it's shaded outside. Honestly, if your opponent is somebody that likes to throw running back wheels out of like single back stuff, again, you're going to kind of notice the same drill here with this. So if I shade outside, you're going to see that if they want to just throw a running back wheel out of the backfield, like, by all means, go ahead, because you're going to see that that shaded outside is going to pick off the running back wheel. And now this is 6 the other direction with a block or 2. So you're not throwing tight end wheels. You're not throwing running back wheels. You're really not getting a whole hell of a lot here with this example. You know, what really is open in this? Well, obviously, you know, in breaking routes, meshing combos are going to be a little bit tougher to deal with because of the shaded out hook curls. But I would say that most players are kind of averse to throwing against the user to begin with. So even if somebody wants to run like a mesh post in the red zone, like, it doesn't really hurt you too much. As long as you're running kind of a cover 4 with a shade outside, like, I still feel like it's going to be hard to live on a diet of drags, you know, like this, like, what's really open here. And then of course, if they go to scramble, the cool part is you got those hook curls underneath. You click the stick to send them. They're right there in the middle for that scramble. They can't just step up and run in the end zone. They're going to take a hit. So, you know, it's really a tough red zone defense, arguably the best in the game. Again, the biggest drawback to running zone in the red zone is those little alleyway throws where the wheel cuts up. That's not going to occur here. One final example, just to kind of illustrate how good this is if you shade outside and your opponent likes to run like streak flat to the running back, like, even this is tough. So again here, like, if I want to throw this ball to the running back, like, you're going to have a dude that can break on this throw and get a mid-zone KO. You just really have to cover it just long enough to kind of make them glance off of it. So if you guys pair yesterday's shading video with today's red zone setup video and have the right AP, it's going to be so hard to come away with points on this in the red zone. Again, use this formula. It's obviously, there are holes in the defense. You have to understand where to use her, but to me, probably the best red zone defense in Madden. Subscribe to the channel. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Until then, this is Zan. Get in the lab and good luck.